talking to yourself. Not a sign of madness. More like running a solo strategy session where you're both the CEO and the intern. Intelligent people think out loud not for an audience, but because it forces vague thoughts into actual structure. Surgeons mentally narrate procedures before making a single incision. Chess players verbalize move sequences to stress test their own logic. NASA engineers reportedly walk through calculations aloud during critical mission phases. Researchers call it cognitive offloading, using your voice as a tool to lighten the mental load. It's how the brain converts background noise into something it can actually work with. Speaking your reasoning out loud forces clarity in a way that silent thinking simply doesn't. Memory sharpens too. Students who talk through material before exams consistently outperform those who only read silently. Caught narrating your own commute? Completely normal. Some problems just need to be spoken before they can be solved. Empathy toward objects. You feel a pang of guilt leaving an old notebook half empty. Your first car felt like a relationship, not a transaction. Donating childhood books feels oddly like abandonment. This isn't sentimental weakness. It's a measurable indicator of high emotional intelligence redirected toward the inanimate. Anthropologists have documented this trait across cultures. Sailors naming their vessels, farmers naming their livestock, programmers naming their scripts. It's the mind-building emotional architecture around everything it interacts with. Research from the University of Virginia found this tendency is significantly stronger in people who score high on both creativity and interpersonal empathy. Your world isn't populated by objects. It's populated by relationships, most of which happen to be one-sided. That takes more emotional sophistication than most people realize. Feeling like an outsider. You're at the table but studying the table rather than sitting at it. You notice the unspoken hierarchy in a group before anyone said a word. You clock the gap between what people say and what the room actually feels like. Anthropologists call this the observer effect, the ability to be present in a culture while simultaneously analyzing it from a distance. Writers, researchers, and diplomats rely on exactly this skill professionally. It's not disconnection, it's dual processing, participating and documenting at the same time. Historians note that some of the most accurate accounts of major social movements came not from those at the center, but from those positioned just outside it. The margin isn't exile, it's often the best seat for understanding what's actually happening. Emotional investment in abstract ideas. A flawed argument in a documentary ruins the whole thing for you. A policy that contradicts its own stated values genuinely keeps you up. You can't engage with an idea casually, and it either holds up or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, something in you needs to address it. Cognitive scientists describe this as high need for cognitive closure combined with strong value internalization. It shows up consistently in lawyers, ethicists, investigative journalists, and scientists who refuse to let an anomalous data point go unexplained. The brain isn't just processing, it's auditing. And when the audit fails, the emotional response is automatic. It's not overthinking, it's a mind that holds ideas to the same standard it holds people. Preferring written communication over spoken. You'll spend 20 minutes on a message that will take 30 seconds to read, and feel it was worth every minute. Voice calls feel like being asked to present without preparation time. Real-time conversation compresses thinking into whatever fits between two people's breathing. Writing removes that pressure entirely. Historians note that some of history's most influential thinkers, Darwin, Newton, Tesla, were notoriously poor verbal communicators but produced written work of extraordinary precision. The medium wasn't a limitation. It was the right tool for the kind of thinking they were doing. Writing doesn't just record thought, it shapes it. The act of constructing a sentence forces decisions that spoken improvisation never requires. For a mind that runs deep, that structure isn't optional. It's where the real thinking actually happens. Intense reactions to injustice and hypocrisy. A colleague takes credit for someone else's work, and your entire system flags it like a security breach. A law that protects the institution while failing the individual doesn't just bother you, it occupies you. This isn't emotional instability. It's a highly developed ethical operating system reacting to a world that wasn't built to match it. Psychologists studying whistleblowers, civil rights advocates, and reform leaders consistently find this profile. People whose moral frameworks are so internally consistent that external violations feel like direct interference. The reaction isn't disproportionate to the person experiencing it. It's just calibrated to a standard most people around them aren't running. That gap between your internal standard and external reality is exactly what drives meaningful change. Historically, it always has been, being highly sensitive to social signals. You know a meeting went badly before anyone debriefs it. You sense when a friendship is shifting weeks before any conversation happens. You pick up the specific silence that follows a joke that landed wrong versus one that was simply absorbed. Neuroscientists studying high-sensitivity individuals find elevated activity in the mirror neuron system, the neural network responsible for reading and simulating other people's internal states. It's the same system that makes great therapists, skilled negotiators, and effective leaders. The cost is genuine. You process more data per social interaction than most, which means you also carry more of it home. But that same system that exhausts you in crowded rooms is what makes you the person others trust when they need to be genuinely understood. Long, deep, silent phases. You disappear mid-conversation. Not physically, but mentally. A question gets asked and you need actual time before anything worth saying surfaces. You don't fill silence with noise because you know the noise would. Be hollow. Cognitive psychologists studying creative problem-solving found that the most innovative solutions rarely emerge during active work. They surface during rest, walks, or unfocused states. This is the default mode network activating, the brain's background processing system that runs most effectively when conscious attention steps aside. Archimedes wasn't in his lab when the insight came. Poincaré famously solved a mathematical problem the moment he stepped onto a bus, after weeks of conscious effort had produced nothing. The silence isn't absence. It's the phase where the actual work gets done. Collecting deep, unusual obsessions. 3 months ago, it was the economic history of the Silk Road. Last month, competitive memory training. This month, the structural engineering of Gothic cathedrals. Not a surface interest in any of them. A full immersion that produces genuine expertise in a matter of weeks. Psychologists studying polymaths, people like Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, or more recently Elon Musk, consistently find this pattern of serial deep diving across unrelated domains. The brain isn't being scattered. It's building a cross-referenced internal library that eventually starts producing connections nobody else can see, and because nobody else has the same combination of inputs. The obsessions look random from the outside. From the inside, they're all part of the same ongoing investigation. Building private personal systems. Your task management doesn't exist in any app. It exists in a notebook system you developed over 2 years that would take an hour to explain to anyone else. Your file structure makes perfect sense to you and baffles everyone who accidentally opens your laptop. Your mental categorization of people, problems, and priorities follows internal logic that has no official name. Cognitive scientists studying expert performance find this consistently. Top performers in complex fields rarely use standard systems. Chess grandmasters develop personal opening repertoires. Elite athletes build custom mental preparation routines. The system isn't the point. The thinking behind the system is. You didn't adopt a framework, you reverse engineered one from scratch because nothing available quite matched how your mind actually operates. That's not disorder, that's precision. If several of these felt uncomfortably accurate, that's not coincidence. Drop a comment with the one that hit hardest. Share this with someone who spent too long thinking their habits were problems. And subscribe, because the next video goes further into the traits most people spend their entire lives misunderstanding about themselves.